Yo, what's going on, everybody? You're checking it out. It's the Highly Advised Podcast, episode 57. I'm here with two of my brothers, a couple good friends to you guys. Lau, Nigel. It's me, if you don't know, it's Spence. So what's going on with you guys? It's episode 57. How you guys feeling today?
Yo, it's your boy, Lau Shay, a.k.a. Big Cozy, Too Cozy. I'm doing really well. Shouts out to Spence, shouts out to Nigel. What's up, Nigel? How you doing, man?
Not so bad. This is Relaxing Noji_Jackson. I am here with my amigos and compadres. We're here for another week. This is episode 57. This is the best hip hop and MMA podcast on the internet, and you can follow us at the Highly Advised Podcast on Instagram. You can follow us on the YouTube with the same name, and if you go to Advise Highly on Twitter, you can even follow us there. We are here for y'all, providing all types of MMA and hip hop content. Maybe you can even suggest something cool for us to look at too. We're here for you guys.
Exactly. We're here for you guys. We want you guys to know. We want you guys to know what's going on in hip hop and in combat sports. But at the same time, like my man Nigel said, sometimes there's things you want to see that we may not have mentioned. So you got to bring it up to us so we can help you out. Because listen, we want everybody to understand this. There's no other place in the universe. No other place in the universe like the Highly Advised Podcast. You can't go get MMA and combat sports and hip hop and R&B and pop culture all in one. It's a hard find. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. You might be, matter of fact, it's worse than that. It's like it's like finding the Alchemist album on YouTube. It's impossible. It's pretty much impossible.
We're gonna get into that later.
Definitely so. But with that being said, how have your fellas week been so far? Like, how you guys been feeling since like the last time we talked to the fans?
Man, I feel relaxed. I feel happy. I feel very grateful, very blessed, very spiritual. I feel very, very financially stable. And
you burned the sage this morning.
Nope. No sage, just a good old H2O, the same shit that you always say at the end of every episode. So I feel good, no complaints. This upcoming week is going to be a very relaxing week, and I think a few people know why. And I got nothing more to say, man. I'm ready to talk about our topics. What about you, Nigel?
This week has been pretty good. I've been chilling out, doing, some thinking and whatnot, and just, getting some things in order. I can feel that my leg is like really getting to the point where I'm like, okay, like this is kind of the way it's supposed to be, you know what I mean? After a long time of healing and whatnot. So it's kind of cool. I haven't really been, up to anything new, but just, kind of carrying on with what I've been doing for the last few weeks. And it's like, not so bad. The weather is nice. It's beautiful outside.
Nah, that's a fact. The life is good. The weather has been beautiful. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm glad to hear your leg is finally getting better, man. Like back to last time I saw you was kind of had like a nice little pimp limp. You know what I'm saying? If anybody that's watched Snowfall knows he pretty much was like Franklin with the cane for a while. So if you watch Snowfall, at some point you'll understand what I mean. But
I actually started watching it again, man.
Oh, word?
Yeah, I'm gonna dedicate some time to catch up so we can discuss it.
Yeah, definitely do that. I think that'd be a good discussion we can have. But like between that and then even like Lau said, like it's the same deal. Feeling beautiful, feeling great, drinking water, sage is burning sometimes just to clean out the toxins and spirits. But other than that, I mean, I can't complain. I can say this though, even though I'm feeling great, I know who didn't feel great last night was probably Cody Garbrandt in the UFC fight night.
Yeah.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. When he fought Rob Font last night. It didn't go his way.
Yeah,
I can say that.
To be very polite about it.
Yeah.
Before we jump too far ahead in terms of how the fight went, what did you guys think of the fight?
So when I watched it, me and Lyle were talking about it kind of, throughout the fight, and definitely afterwards we gave our thoughts to each other. But it's like essentially the way I looked at it is that he went in there and got dominated and, kind of just got, lit up for about 5 rounds. And there was a point in time where Cody was doing, decently well on the ground, is what I'll say. One thing that Lau had pointed out was like his the way he was wrestling, it might have tired him out, which could have had an effect on the rest of the fight. But he just looked to essentially get beat up for, the next 3 rounds. And it's like, shouts out to him because he didn't look so bad, prior to that. But me personally, I just think that, he did not look that great last night. So it just didn't go in his favor.
I also agree that he didn't look that great. What I will say is, here's where the positive starts. His chin held up. Usually when he's getting hit quite a bit, he's getting pretty knocked out. Also, that first round and the 5th round, he did show signs of trying to compete, trying to win the fight. I think he got 50-45. I'm not upset if somebody comments, I think it's 49-46. I very, very disagree with the judge that gave it to Rob Font 48-47. I think that Rob Font, his striking was on point. He was utilizing his reach and his jab very well. And he wasn't even looking for any knockout shot or any knockout blow. It was kind of like he was taking his time, peppering him with the jab. He'll throw it straight, 1, 2, boom, boom, boom. I like how when he got taken down the 3rd time, he used the Kimura to kind of threaten Cody to get off of him. And so this way he could either do a sweep or just get up off the ground. So, and then he was stuffing takedowns. So Rob Hunt, he really had a good world-class performance in this fight. And I think that he's about 1 fight away from a title shot. I think he looked good. For Cody Garbrandt, however, shouts out to him. He is a former champion. He did beat Dominic Cruz, but he's at the back of the line for bantamweight now. He should drop down to 125 if he wants to see a title fight pretty soon. But if he does want to cut the weight, then hopefully he knows that he's going to have to fight, 3 to 4 times before he was sniffing the title, because there's quite a few guys in front of him now.
I think at 125, he actually would have a decent run to be like a contender quickly too. Like, it's not like there is competition at 125, don't get me wrong, but I think Cody Garbrandt can go down there, possibly knock somebody out and be like in the title picture, because he does still have that in him. You can see it, especially early in the fight. He didn't look slow.
No.
Yeah. Like, I think he would have a better chance at 125 just overall. Like, I think when it comes to after seeing the fight, after his performance last night, and as we all saw, he did have some issues, and Rob Font was sticking him with the jab as well as not rushing himself to try to go for a knockout, go for the kill. And we saw how even in round 5, where Cody was actually taking advice from his corner, trying to go first when it came to the point of attack, which was helping him somewhat, but he was still getting caught. So I think, like Lau said, I think this does push him to the back within bantamweight. And I think going to 125, similar to what Nigel even said, there is competition there, but we all know this when it comes to sports, especially when it comes to like someone that's been at the championship level. Like, it's not guaranteed that you're going to have an easy run at a lower weight class, but it gives you a little bit more. It can give you an advantage. It can give you an advantage if your skill set is still up there and you're able to still make the weight, because I think the weight cut is going to be the biggest issue for him. So
supposedly, it said that he doesn't have too hard of a time getting down to 125, though. I'm not sure exactly as to how that'll go for him.
Well, if he doesn't have a hard time going down there, then because I don't even think he probably doesn't really have to cut that much then right now, and he's still pretty young though, right? I think he's maybe
28, I think 28, 29.
Oh yeah, he could at least go down there and try it out.
Yeah, he's our age, so he is not. Youth is still on his side.
Yeah, so like he definitely has a shot, because I think that was around the same age when Conor was jumping down to like 145 and like pretty much depleting his whole body just to cut weight. So at that young of an age, being a champion before, he knows what it's like to compete at the championship level. It's just cutting that weight, and possibly even cutting that weight may make him a stronger fighter within the ring, to be honest with you, just because it's less weight on him, and he'll probably, hopefully, if it's not an issue cutting the weight, it should help him with still carrying the power that he has, because and we all know Cody, like when Cody is able to be on all cylinders, he's not just someone you can just toy around with to some extent. So, but I do also remember Michael Bisping during the fight, like he was saying how Cody Garbrandt did have he did have a case of COVID, had vertigo, pneumonia, and all of these other things. So, not saying those are excuses, but I think he more than likely, Cody, after this fight, like even Cody said after the fight, he had to deal with a lot of himself within that fight. So hopefully he figures out what the recipe is for him. Maybe take some time to try to get his mind clear, figure out on the weight cut, and probably go from there, I think.
So this is my bad, Nigel, but this is where the realness has to come in. This is when the professionalism has to go out the window a little bit. Cody Garbrandt must have been confident enough, and he probably thought, hey, I have the tools and skills to beat this guy, to sign on the dotted line. And then when you lose, now all of a sudden it's, oh, well, I'm dealing with this, I was dealing with that. Like, you're taking away from Rafa's performance, right? It wasn't like Cody blew his ACL during training camp and then all of a sudden he went into the fight still. Then that's a legitimate excuse. But the whole COVID and all that, I feel like if you felt like that was really a factor in this fight, then why are you fighting?
Well, this is what Michael Bisping was saying.
I
get what you're saying.
Yeah, and I feel like that's bad excuses. That's not fair. Look at Hamzat Chimaev. He got stricken with COVID pretty bad, or to the point where he prematurely retired before he, reversed his thoughts. If it's like that, then maybe take some more time before you fight. Don't sign on the dotted line. Be very, coming out saying like, hey, I think I'm going to have a much better performance than I did against Dominic Cruz, because that's what he said. To turn around and be like, oh, wow, I was dealing with a lot. Like, I'm pretty sure he was dealing with a lot. I'm pretty sure Rafa was dealing with a lot. Everybody deals with a lot in training camp. So you're taking away from Rafa's performance when you're saying, hey, I'm still feeling the effects of COVID. Like, that's not Rob's fault. He went in there thinking he's fighting the best version of Cody. He didn't go in there thinking like, oh, I'm fighting 50% Cody Garbrandt. And I give Rafa 100% credit for the performance he put on. And I'm not trying to say Cody is coming out with excuses, but if for anybody that's giving him excuses, they should stop. They should stop. But moving on for the fight night, in the co-main event, Carla Esparza, she dominated this young lady. Unfortunately, I'm not really familiar with this young lady because they didn't start really giving her any name recognition until last night. Saturday night, excuse me. So Carla Esparza is next for Thug Rose. Point blank period. Good job for finishing this young lady. But it's Thug Rose versus Carla Esparza too now. Did you guys see that?
Well, did they already announce it?
No, but that's the right fight. That's the right fight to make.
Oh no, like I agree with you. I think that you had called it a couple weeks ago saying that Carla Esparza was the one, but after seeing that performance, like I was just like, oh, okay, like she's like really the one to go. So it's like I'm not mad at that matchup. I think it could be interesting. I personally still think she's gonna lose. You know what I mean? And there's nothing against like Carla Esparza, but I just think that fight is gonna be a showcase fight for Thug Rose, you know what I mean? Because I just think they're stylistically, I just think she can, put it on her in comparison to their first fight years ago.
Right. Like I didn't have a chance to, I didn't catch that fight last night, but I can say this based off like previous conversations we had and even taken from what you guys have said and seeing some highlights. I do believe that Carla Esparza would be the best match for Rose going forward. I mean, I'll put it like this. I will say, because Esparza was the one that beat Rose the last time. So
yeah,
it's granted there's things change with seasons and fighters get better and they sharpen up their skill set. So I'm not going to jump out the window and just say that Rose will be able to beat her now just easily. Definitely when they fought for the belt last time and Rose lost. So, but I do think that would be a good matchup to see. I definitely can say that, and I'll definitely have to check out the girl that Esparza fought, being that now that they're trying to push her, especially. So,
Yeah, and other MMA news as well, listeners. And since we're on the topic of women, Bellator on the other side of the MMA world, they also had an event this past weekend. And Cris Cyborg, she knocks out a girl she already beat. So we're going to move past that. And Valerie Loureda, who Bellator has been putting the machine behind her, despite the fact that she's 3-0. Now she's 3-1 because she just lost. She's lost some fandom. Let me say that much. Because over the weekend, she lost to a fairly unknown young lady, and no disrespect to the lady, but she's just unknown. She was brought in, she was brought in to do the job. And when she didn't do the job, a lot of people are now criticizing Valerie Loureda. There was a post that came out where her coach was like, chewing her out in the corner, telling her to cut out the flashy nonsense and get back to fighting smart. So my thought is Valerie Loureda, she's a beautiful woman, right? A lot of people gravitate towards her because they're attracted to her. And if you go on her social media, it's more of her being like model versus her being a fighter, and not trying to discredit her work ethic or anything like that, because she probably is working really hard in the gym for upcoming fights or not, but she's getting this big push because of her looks, right? It's kind of like Paige Van Zandt over in the UFC. So when she's fighting these people who are brought in to lay down and stare at the lights for her, and she's not beating these people, you're going to have fans turn on her because they're going to be like, oh, she's a hype job, or she had bandwagon and the train is now crashed. Da, 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 da. Now, I don't think the loss was because she just lost a decision. So the loss is not like bad, it wasn't like she was beat to a bloody pulp. She just got out grappled. But what I will say is, when the machine is behind you, you have to win. Kind of like what I was saying with Jorge Masvidal, him being street Jesus, thug this, thug that, blah, blah, blah. That's cool and all, but you got to win. And when you're not winning, people stop believing in the machine. So what do you guys think about Valerie losing to, I think her name was Hannah Guy. So how do you guys feel about that?
Well, my thing about the whole situation with Valerie is that, like you said, it seems that a lot of her, social media following, I guess, is like, that's what we're speaking of, like, know her, for her looks and whatnot. It works because, like, she's an MMA fighter that also, is attractive. It's like, okay, cool. But those two things work in tandem. You know what I mean? Like, so if one of those things kind of go to the wayside, then it's like, okay, well, then you either going to still have people there for this one thing or they're not going to be. But it's like, if they like her for her looks, a loss isn't going to hurt anything. I would like to say that she's training to not just be, some model on Instagram. You know what I mean? She's clearly competing with people. And I think, for a loss, it's not like, she took the worst loss of her life. You know what I mean? Just go back to the drawing board and come back. Maybe she might, actually take out the next person with another TKO. It's possible.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think to me it really boils down to, like, granted, like, her social media following does kind of stem from that to some extent, in terms of, like, when I just see people, like, when you look at the comments and you look at some of the people that share her content, a lot of times it's based off, like, the package, right? But I do believe this at the end of the day, just like Lau said, it all comes down to winning. When it doesn't matter, the looks sometimes don't even matter. When you're winning, you win. And when you win and you dominate, it's no question of, do you deserve to go to the next level? I think the machine pushing behind her knows, if we can get her to be, if she can continue to win and we can get her to a title space, or we can make her part of the face of the sport, and it's a huge benefit to Bellator as well as to her. What I'll say is I think Valerie needs to just go back to the drawing board. I mean, I follow her as well, and even she was talking about prior to the fight how I think she's been making weight since she was like 8 or something like that. She's only 22, so she still has a lot of upside to her in terms of like just those feats that we see where in the long term of how sometimes the champion, someone who becomes a champion, has the issues of trying to, I guess, build their skill set to some extent to actually be a dominating fighter. I think taking a loss and seeing where her challenges are in terms of what can actually beat her, it will be more beneficial if she decides to actually not do the flashy stuff and just hone in on the skill set of, listen, this girl's a better grappler than me, I'm a better striker than her. What I need to do is work on my grappling. Even if like, and I don't even like using Francis in this term, but even when we saw with Francis when he fought Stipe, we knew he wasn't a good grappler, but we also understood he went back to the drawing board and said, hey, what do I need to do to perfect my game to be at a championship level or to be at the next level at the end of the day? So especially when the machine is behind you. So like it would be the same. It would be like saying, well, I don't know who this girl she fought is, so I don't want to compare her to Dennis Seaver, right?
Right.
But it's one of those things where imagine if Conor had lost to Dennis Seaver, right?
Yeah.
Like because he won that fight and then would go off to fight for a championship. So like, it's like one of those things when the machine is behind you and they recognize, hey, as long as this person, if you can win, as long as you can win, we'll try to make sure we can connect the dots and just to make sure we can get you to the next level. So it's really on her at the end of the day. In so many words, it's really on her. If she sits back, hones in on her skills, not allowing herself to get too and it might sound unfavorable, but kind of step away from like the model side of things and just really lock in on like, hey, the only time you're seeing pictures is me in the gym. Granted, she does post stuff like that, but
right.
It's just needing just locking in on just working on the skill. Like if your corner is yelling at you, telling you to cut off like just the extras, then that says something. So I'm quite sure she got chewed out by her coach though. Like
the way I see it is, I'm not sure what her amateur record looks like, but I mean, she only has like 3 or 4 fights, right? Like she's 3-1 right now.
Yeah, she's 3-1. Yeah.
So me and Lau were talking about this before. Like she doesn't really have like the most experience as far as I know, in like, the cage. So I mean, she has time to grow. Like I'm not sure exactly as to what amount of training she has or whatever the case is, but like, if she, wants to take it seriously, then yeah, she just needs to go and retool it a little bit. It's not like she has some serious fundamental flaw. Like, she lost a decision. Shit happens, just get back in there.
Yeah, at least what I will say is, though we kind of breezed over the Cris Cyborg fight, I did watch that fight, and at least her corner wasn't like I think it was, I forget, I think it was Lena Smith was Cris Cyborg's opponent. At some point in that fight, her corner was telling her, you're winning the fight. And Cris Cyborg's corner was like, stop lying to her. She's losing. So, like, as long as she doesn't have a corner that's trying to, granted, I get boosting the confidence of a fighter, but as long as her corner is not lying to her and being honest in the ring and outside of the ring when it's during practice on the mats, being now at 3-1, I think she has a better shot of taking that honesty, consuming it, and going back into the gym and building her skill set. Like, because like Nigel said, she's still early on in her career at the end of the day. So.
I was just going to say, honestly, a loss might do her wonders, really, because usually fighters, once they get a first loss, they kind of understand, like, okay, this is what I really need to do. Look at Kamaru Usman. When he got choked out by that guy, he said it himself. That kind of like, he knew, like, I never want to lose again. So he did everything he could possibly do to never lose again. And now he's pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. So,
the road ahead for her could be high. And, at least she doesn't have Joshua Fabia in her corner. And it turns out neither does Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez We have there's been reports that have came out that said that Diego Sanchez and Joshua Fabia have now ended their training career, and Diego Sanchez sees the sunlight. He can start doing cartwheels again. Like, life isn't bad for him anymore. It's about to be summertime, and Diego Sanchez is about to be outside.
Yo.
He said hot boy summer.
It's like I hit up Fabia in September.
Oh,
Like,
Jesus.
Oh my God. Damn.
Nah, I mean, I will say this. I mean, we've been covering this Diego Sanchez and Fabia thing for a while now. Probably since last year, I do believe, or early this year. I think it was since last year, possibly. So I think with all the McDojo stuff that we've said about Fabio, I think this is the perfect thing for Diego Sanchez. I'm happy that he's decided to do this, especially now that he's broken ties with. He's separated himself from the UFC. Hopefully now, like Nigel said, he can do these cartwheels and actually go back into the ring and start being like a fighter with promise.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think Diego still needs to take some time. Get with, if he does want to continue his MMA career or any form of combat, whether it's boxing, et cetera, he needs to get with a good camp, a camp that's going to make him healthy again, a camp that's going to support him in his training. It's a good thing he removed himself from this guy who apparently, I read on an article from MMA Junkie, shouts out to them, where Josh Fabia had the what's the thing where you can have an outside party, get access to your bank accounts, and what is it? It's something. What is it, Spence? Being our financial guru,
I know it.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
it's like rights or something like that. I don't know.
I know exactly.
Anybody digging in your bank account that's not you is a bad thing if you don't trust that person.
Right, but Diego gave him the legal right to do it. I forgot the right terminology.
Kind of like a guardian or something to that.
Yeah. Listeners and people in the comments, please let us know the proper term for that, because right now I can't think of it. Neither can my amigos. But I just think, like, when I read that, I was kind of like, whoa, like this guy, he was really, really like in Diego's mind, like for that to happen. So not only he was a coach, he was a little more personal than a coach. And I feel like that the guy was a scam artist, right? Everybody in the world knew whatever him and Diego's relationship was, Diego couldn't see past that. It was kind of like whatever he seen from Fabia, he was kind of like, man, I'm going to give this guy what he needs. And Fabia is like, what I need is money. So
hold on, was he his power of attorney?
There we go. Boom.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's crazy, man.
That's extreme. Like
crazy
I
stuff.
know exactly. For someone to be, and for listeners who don't know this, right? Like for someone to be your power of attorney is a huge thing. This is someone you're giving your rights to in terms of, if something happens to me, this person has the right to make certain decisions for me. If, let's say, God forbid, Diego Sanchez had gotten hurt, sick, couldn't speak for himself, like Josh Fabia being his power of attorney means that he can go and make the financial decisions. He's responsible for anything that's involved in Diego Sanchez's life, at least when it comes to his bank account. Like that's things that you only give, like, you give to like your family when you're like when you're about to die. Like when you're I'll put it like this for people for a better understanding for people. When people get older, and let's say you have kids, you may give your kids the power. You may allow your child to be the power of attorney for you in the case that, hey, I'm up in age. If I was to have a stroke, heart attack, or I'm just not able to be in my right mind for whatever reason, sickness or poor health, that is the right you give a power of attorney. You just don't give it to your trainer. Like, yeah. That's sick.
Apparently he was more than just a trainer for that to happen. So I mean, there's multiple conspiracy theories out there about the guy, and we could go on for another 10-20 minutes, but there's more important things to mention. And shouts out to Diego Sanchez for finally separating yourself.
A good
My
breakup.
God.
The breakups we love to see, man.
Yeah.
So speaking of, well, no, actually,
Oh, it's too late now. I told you he'd be doing that.
Yeah.
I told you he'd be doing that, bro.
Listen, man. You saw a 3 and you aimed for the middle one. In the words of
Jesus.
LeBron.
Y'all got me. Y'all got me. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about what might happen if the Clippers don't make it far in the playoffs. If they we might have a breakup between Kawhi and the Clippers if they don't make it far in the playoffs and everything going on with the play-in tourney.
So, listeners, once again, I ended up being wrong with who I chose to be in the playoff. The Warriors didn't make it. They lost to the Lakers with LeBron with one eye. Well, that's the storyline. That's the storyline they're pushing. He had one eye.
LeBron shot from like 30 something feet and was like, looked at Steph Curry and said, "My eye, I can't see." Come on, yo. I saw 3 rims and aimed for the middle one. This is not Space Jam, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, hey, maybe he thinks he's in Space Jam because he
still in character, right?
Yeah, still, he thinks the green screen is there and all that. But the Warriors, they lost. Not only lost to the Lakers, they lost to the freaking Grizzlies, right? Now, shouts out to John Morant, baller, 100%, 100% baller. But damn, lost to the Grizzlies. You know what I mean? So, like, Warriors are out, and that's okay. The Wizards made it. I'm happy, right? So I think the Wizards could compete with the 76ers. So I'm pulling for the Wizards. But anyway, so the playoffs did start Saturday night. The biggest story coming out of it is the Clippers losing to the Mavericks in game 1, right? The Nets, they did their thing. They beat the Celtics, but the Clippers losing to the Mavericks is kind of a little alarming because it's kind of like, damn, you lost at home and you didn't lose by 1 or 2 points. You lost by a margin. So because of that, now people are kind of questioning the Clippers again. Oh, are they going to choke again? Of course, people who don't like the Clippers or LeBron diehards, they're going to be slamming Kawhi, slamming the Clippers. So that's the biggest story. Shannon Sharp already came out. Oh, they're flippers, blah, 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 big L, da, da, da. So really, how do you guys feel about the Clippers losing? And just for the sake of time, do you have a quick NBA Finals prediction before we move on to the next hot topic?
I think my prediction for the finals is I'm gonna go. Let's go with the Suns versus the Sixers.
Wow. Okay. Go. What about you, Spence?
You guys know I don't keep up with the NBA as much, but
okay, well, who would you like?
Suns
to see
versus
win?
the Nets. My bad.
Yeah, because I'm thinking Brooklyn also. I'm thinking Brooklyn. I don't even know. I'll just say I'll go with the Suns in Brooklyn. I mean, it would be interesting seeing the Brooklyn versus Lakers, but I don't think the Lakers are going to get that far. So.
Yeah, they're not. Like, that's just no, they're not. And here's why I say that, because like LeBron is always going to be LeBron, but LeBron looks like 80% LeBron. You know what I mean? Right now at the moment, you know what I mean? Like he looked like slightly slow. You know what I mean? And I think with him, what, do you disagree, Law?
No. I don't disagree.
I heard the heavy breathing. I was just like, just checking. But I don't know. Like, it's when I see him play, I'm just like, you need him to be 100% in order to get to the finals right now in his conference, in my opinion.
I agree, man. The Lakers have been struggling. I know ESPN and Disney, they want the Lakers to make it.
They're praying for it.
Yeah, they're praying for Lakers and Nets finals. But
I mean, go ahead, my bad.
I think I would like to see the Suns make it that far. I also would like to see the Suns knock the Lakers out the playoffs. I'm just tired of the LeBron narrative and I'm just tired of it.
I mean, I will say this. LeBron, they're always going to do what's best for LeBron, right?
Right.
Because I'm not sure if you guys heard, but the NBA did come to him about because I think there were some pictures that were floating around with him, Drake, Michael B. Jordan,
I heard about
Kwame
it.
Idris, and he was just like because he was pretty much out somewhere. He pretty much violated protocol.
Let's
Right.
be
Because
real, right?
Yeah, but then they said, well, we're not going to fine him. And I think I saw a meme where he was like, yeah, everybody was vaccinated. Drake, all of them vaccinated.
Is he really getting punished?
No.
Let's be real.
LeBron.
Let's
Come
be
on
real.
now.
No, he's there's a reason why he's the face of the NBA still. So
Yeah. Like he hasn't gotten to that point where they're just like, yo, we don't care about you at all. Like he's still LeBron at the end of the day. Like, and
yeah.
I'll say this. I don't want to say too many bad things about LeBron because I don't want him to pop up 15 years from now with a lot to say to me about me. Similar to what many people may have been seeing from the past week with Kwame Brown, where he's kept his silence for 20 years. And he's finally decided to break his silence in what he gives the term giving out mama's cooking.
So mama's recipe. Mama's yeah. So shouts out to Kwame Brown. So for the listeners who are not kind of familiar, just a quick recap. So Matt Barnes and Steve Jackson, they have this podcast called All the Smoke. I think it's through Showtime. But anyway, they had like Gilbert Arenas, and they recently was kind of like clowning Kwame Brown, basically saying he was a scrub, he was a bust in the NBA, not all that good. But this wasn't the first time that Kwame was getting trashed on by like people from sports media.
About 20 years worth of it.
Yeah, way back then, Stephen A was trashing on him. And then now that it was kind of like some of a hot topic, now you got people who never played sports at a professional level, like Charlemagne the God and DJ Envy at the Breakfast Club making their comments. So, the straw that broke the camel's back was what happened recently. And Kwame is now coming out defending himself. And he's kind of like letting it all out. He's some people think he's exposing people, et cetera, et cetera. He brought up the situation with Charlemagne and his controversial case, and he was telling stories about how Gilbert and Steve Jackson and Matt Barnes, how they're not tough, and whether
I mean,
the consensus though is a lot of people are siding with Kwame Brown on this. And a lot of people are happy that he's kind of coming out and all that. And so as far as like the personal stuff, I don't have no say in the matter because obviously I wasn't in those rooms. Right. I don't know these people personally. Right. So I can't be like, oh, Kwame's telling the truth about that. But what I will say from a person on the outside that is a fan of basketball is like, hey, I agree with Kwame standing up and trying to defend himself from 20 years of slander. You know what I mean? I feel like that. Why should he sit there and be the was it the butt or the punching bag? Let's just say that of all these jokes when he's done something that the majority of people in America, let alone the world, can't do, which is play in the NBA for over a decade, right? And not only that, at 18 years old, be able to buy his mother a nice home, be able to make programs for less fortunate kids, he may not be remembered as Michael Jordan, but but at least he'll be remembered within his community and within his family. This guy made millions, and apparently he managed his millions well because he's not hurt for money, according to him or whatever. So I feel like I support the fact that he's standing up for himself. Yeah, his NBA career might have not been the greatest, but far as like just a human being level, I don't think that he's wrong for defending himself.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there where it's like I'm happy that he's finally standing up for himself. Like he's been quiet for so many years. I think the biggest issue I think was I mean, he was drafted by Michael Jordan, and I think because of that, that puts so much pressure on him.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, at the end of the day, some players are not stars, some players are role players, and I think when you get drafted by who's arguably the greatest player to ever play the game, it puts a certain look, it puts a certain smudge on, like, there's a certain expectation, I'll say. The fact that he didn't live up to that expectation, it kind of hurt him to some extent, but I think the amount of slander that's happened over the years, even from the Breakfast Club to Gilbert Arenas to Stephen A. Smith, even Roy Hibbert. I was watching something just the other day where he was talking about Roy Hibbert, where he's like, yo, X, Y, and Z, like, I'll meet up with you. We can really fight, whatever the case may be. Like, all this other, long story short, I don't want to go on a tangent, but in so many words, he's just expressed his frustrations from Skip Bayless to Stephen A. Smith to Roy Hibbert to even Gilbert Arenas actually copped some pleas, honestly. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like he's a has-been that gained 70 or 80 pounds. Like,
right.
He's still someone that I think he was playing in the Big Three before, also, I believe. Or I believe he was playing in the Big Three. So
I don't know if he did or not, but
yeah, I was talking to a friend and they said something about they weren't sure if he'd be able to be invited back to the Big Three because of all of this controversy. He's created a platform for himself. My only question is how will this work for him moving forward? Because we live in the internet age at the end of the day, and it comes and goes. So you can have this hot streak, get 200,000 followers on your YouTube page of you slandering people, but then after like 2 or 3 weeks of that, it's going to be like, okay, what's next? So
right, I agree with that. Yeah,
I'm hoping that him and his mama's cooking is like he's got platters. He's got these platters for now, and then he's going to build a restaurant because he's giving out dishes. I will say that he's giving out dishes, and people are scared to take the plate. I will give him that.
Yeah, no, people in the media, they're not really, I mean, besides Matt Barnes, who apparently not only Kwame said this, but other people, plays tough guy in front of the screen, he's like the only one that's kind of like, hey, yeah, I'll fight you, blah, blah, blah. But everybody else, they're kind of like trying to be, I'm sorry, or if they're not sorry, they're trying to like avoid responding.
Yeah. Gilbert Arenas saw him break someone's jaw before.
Well, here's the thing, right? So, like, the thing is that we don't know Kwame Brown as a person, right? So we can't judge him off of that. What we can say is that, in his career, he performed this way, he performed that way. And it's like, we have all right to say that because that's what's put in front of us. However, when somebody's taken that for like 20 solid years and it's just like being put in his face, he has the right to come back and say as to whatever he's going to say. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just, everybody has their limit. And you can't just expect somebody just to take something for so long without saying it up. It's like, it gets to a point where it's like, why are you even bringing my name up to prove your point? You know what I mean? I'm sure you can find another example or somebody else, but it's like, y'all just keep on saying my name. So it's like, I'm going to really, put y'all on blast because y'all keep on doing this. So I don't blame him. You know what I mean? This isn't like the first time it's happened. And it just so happened that it happened to be on them. But I mean, it is what it is. Maybe they, you can't expect things and not expect some type of repercussion. Like, we talk our shit, but we do respect the fighters. You know what I mean? At least we try to, or I should say the people we talk about, athletes in particular.
Yeah, absolutely.
My bad. I cut you off, bro. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say I just totally agree with that. Where it's we respect, you still have to have some respect, and it's, to me, I just think of it like this: if you go into your workspace, and while you're in your workspace, you're doing a great job. You may not be the best person. You may not be the best person at what you do in your field or whatever. But then someone goes around and says, "Oh, they're not this, that, and the third," and they're like still talking about your performance 20 years later. It's like, yo, it's like, fam, is there a personal issue? Like, I to be honest with you, I think what Kwame Brown is doing, I think we'll start to see, we may end up seeing a lot more of this from other athletes. Like, I'm honestly, I'd be interested in seeing Smush Parker have some words also, because a lot of people had a lot of bad words about him for like years as well. So
I think that I'm not opposed for athletes to responding to media members or people who do like podcasting and stuff like that, kind of like us. Because
respond
like,
to us.
yeah, respond to us. But like, I think that if we're bold enough, media members, et cetera, is bold enough to come out and say a comment that's not respectful or favorable, then we should also be able to, to receive the backlash. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But here's the thing though about it. I feel like as media members, podcasters, radio personalities, they should say what's in their mind. And I feel like they should get off what they feel like on their chest. There's a way to be professional, but people shouldn't sugarcoat shit neither. Now, I'm not saying you should bash Kwame Brown for 20 years. No, absolutely not. I'm not saying that because that's wrong. But if the topic comes up and he happens to be in the topic of the conversation, then you could be real about his performance in the NBA. But to like bash him and drag him for 20 years, that's the fucked up thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like Oscar De La Hoya. I think I don't think he's a great representation of boxing right now. But 10 years from now, when we're still doing this podcast, I'm not going to be stuck on that. There's some things that I was talking about when we first started the podcast that I'm not dragging all the way here. Like, I just feel like that there's sometimes we're like, all right, we got the point. When are you going to move on? So I don't think people should hold their tongue, but if you are going to say something, you should expect for that person to say something back. It is what it is. That's the nature of the game. It's kind of like that old cliche saying, if you can't handle the heat, then get out the kitchen type of shit.
Whatever you're willing to say on air, you should be able to, it should be yourself saying it, not you're saying it just for, granted, some things get certain amount of attention than other opinions, but you also have to have the belief system of, hey, I may run into this person in real life. And that's the biggest thing. And also, like you said, if you're still talking about something for 57 episodes, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of certain artists. And like, I may mention it from time to time, but it's not like I'm coming in here every week to bash the same artist, right? Because at that point, it becomes like, someone from the outside looks at it as a personal thing, right? And then it becomes like, okay, like even like with his beef with Stephen A. Smith, like, yo, you've literally been having my name in your mouth for pretty much since I've been in the league, and I didn't perform to what the expectations were. So at some point, it becomes more personal. It's like, do you have a grudge against me? And I think that's a thing that people have to understand. And when it's all said and done, when you have these opinions about athletes and if they're good or not, we always have to remember, we are judging athletes, whether they're horrible, right? They're at the highest level, right? Even someone like, people used to clown Eric Snow, for instance, right? He was at the highest level in the NBA. People said he wasn't that great. Some people would say he wasn't as great as what they thought he could be. But when he was at the collegiate level, he was like a dominating player. So like, and we all know he can go anywhere. These Kwame Brown could have gone to any other league that wasn't the NBA and probably been a force to be reckoned with, right? Yeah. So people have to also respect that. Like,
right.
We can say anything about any fighter, any basketball player, whoever. They could be a bust, but at the same time, they still, there's a separation, because we talked about this before we had started recording. There's a separation in terms of capability from an athlete when they're at certain levels. College wrestler against Olympic wrestler, two different things. High school versus college, two different things. So when you're I don't want to just keep repeating myself. I don't want to repeat myself, but like, yeah, like I think at the end of the day, you just have to be mindful that these are people that play at the all-star level that more than likely the people that give that opinion cannot do. And you have to be mindful of that. Like, if you have an opinion, cool. But if you keep harping on something, that person's going to take it personally.
Yeah, it is. That's how it goes, man. But for one more thing about basketball before we move on for the listeners, there's this thing called overtime. I don't know if they're a company, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So shouts out to overtime. So they're like building 103,000 square feet facility in Atlanta for 16 through 18-year-olds athletes who are trying to get to the professional level of basketball. So Spence kind of brought this topic up to me. Well, actually to all of us really. So Spence, let the listeners know really briefly about, why this is a cool thing, but at the same time, why it should be kind of highlighted.
Yeah. So it's actually going to be an Atlantic station within Atlanta. I think this is a pretty dope thing that they're doing. They're building this facility so that 16 to 18-year-olds, just like Lau was saying, that they'll be able to actually train to get the help they need to curate their skill sets to go to the professional level. And on top of that, what we've noticed over the past couple of years, especially with the Ball brothers, right, where we saw where LaMelo was taken out of high school to go play overseas so he could start making some money. And we've seen other players leave high school to go, instead of going to college, they decided to go to the D League or overseas to make money, and so they can profit from the skill sets while still building on them. What overtime is doing is instead of those players are 16 to 18 that are prefer doing that, they're building this facility where they'll be paid at least a minimum of $100,000 a year, and they'll be giving like health care and disability insurance as well. So it pretty much means that if something happens, a 16-year-old that could be maybe one of the best players in the country, instead of him going to play at a university where they're not getting paid, he can decide to go say, hey, I'm going to go to overtime where we have people like Trey Young and Killer Mike are actually, and other celebrities are actually investing into this. So you're getting someone like Trey Young, who's an actual athlete in the NBA, who's going to help curate those skill sets so they can actually play, so they can get the professional help they need. Now, I personally would say it's a downside, but to some they may find it, is that once these players decide to go into this facility to try to go through this training, they forfeit their rights to high school and college basketball. But that's common when pretty much once you get an agent, it's kind of like, not an agent, but it's once you try to get an agent to play in the league, you've kind of already said like, hey, you can't go back. So it's one of those things. I think this is going to be something beautiful, because I think you have a lot of kids that are in high school with a lot of talent that just don't have the resources. So they may make the decisions that could forfeit their career, but it may be something involving outside of the court. So I think this is a great opportunity for athletes, especially these kids. I think it's going to bring a lot more attention to the skilled players within Atlanta as well as outside of Atlanta that will be coming here. So
yeah, I think especially for that part, the last part, where if you don't have the resources for college and whatnot, then this is great for that. You know what I mean? I think it could be a really good thing for somebody who has all the talent but just doesn't have the opportunity. You know what I mean? So shouts out to them for that.
Yeah, especially and on top of it, it's like I've known players that had the skill set, but even once you go to college, it's not these players don't have a chance to have a job, right? So if you don't have a job, and let's say you may not have the support that you need financially from your family or whatever, it's like, this isn't, because I know people that have tried to go make those transitions, and they've said it's not as easy as people would think when you don't have the proper support, especially when it comes to finances, because the majority of your time is dedicated to playing the game and practicing to get better at the game. So I think paying a 16-year-old, 8 to 18-year-old $100K. So my biggest thing is I just hope they give them like financial advisors, because to give a 16-year-old kid $100,000 minimum,
it's a lot.
Yeah, and like I mean, you can have a kid feeling like he's Big Meech pretty much with $100K. Like,
this is where you step in, Spence.
Exactly.
They should email you specifically.
Exactly. I could be a financial advisor, let you know how we can make things work. And trust me, I'm not like these other guys. I'm not going to skim off of you. We create a percentage, a fee, and we go from there.
He's not going to skim off of you. He will scam off you.
Yeah, you
Oh my God.
We don't do scams here, man. No PPP loans here.
Oh yeah, none of that.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That motherfuckers were doing that.
Yeah, you saw the guy from what was that group? Pretty Ricky. I think he just got sentenced.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
So he was doing that shit.
Yeah, I think he had gotten like over $1 million.
Damn, motherfucker was balling off loans.
Yeah, like they said, and I think they said he spent the money on like some Ferrari. I think a Ferrari.
Yo, shouts out. That's what you're supposed to do when you're scamming, man. Buy the flyest shit. Come on. Why would you scam and get some cheap shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're scared.
Buy the shit you can't pay back.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like and that's the whole thing to me, which I think is crazy, is that the money's so accessible, right? Because people have scams to get the money from what I've seen. And can you guys see me?
I can't. Not right now. I just see your face. It looks like you're in like utter disgust.
Yeah, like you're in a trance.
Yo, I don't know what's going on.
Well, you know what I do know what's going on? I know that Mach-Hommy dropped a project recently and people like it a lot.
Yeah, this project has been getting a lot of love this past week, and I should say, because it just dropped this past weekend. Excuse me. A lot of people are falling in love with it. You have people like Miles saying it's one of the best albums he's ever heard. A lot of people on Twitter, the new narrative is, hey, this album is better than J. Cole's album, et cetera, et cetera. This is album of the year. And I just think, like, I listened to the album. I listened to it twice. I'm on my third listen right now. I enjoy the album. I think the album is a good album or project, whatever you want to call it. And I think the real narrative is Westside Gunn knows how to put an album together. He's very talented in that. I mean, you could question his rapping and go, he's the worst in Griselda, or he's not that. You know, you could do all that. You know, we're fans of Westside Gunn's music anyway, but we know the limitations as well. But what I will say he always excels at is putting shit together. And the motherfucker knows he has a great ear for production too. So I think this album is a good album. I think it's top 10. To say he's better than the offseason, my opinion is no. I think the offseason is a lot more impactful than what people are trying to give it credit for. I think J. Cole's a better rapper than Mach-Hommy. Not say Mach-Hommy's a scrub, because he's not. I think Mach-Hommy proved, the motherfucker can rap pretty good too. I just think J. Cole is just a tier above him. You know what I mean? And I think that because Mach-Hommy just dropped Pray for Haiti, and a lot of people are, as Spence said it, I'm going to take one of his little phrases, prison of the moment, prisoners of the moment. I feel like, hey, that should not outshine a great album in the off season. So off season is still a better album for me, but I think Pray for Haiti is a damn good project. And Westside Gunn, he did it again.
Yeah.
Shouts out to Mach-Hommy, but Westside Gunn curated it. I mean,
yeah, when I was listening to it, I think a lot of people like kind of just want to hate on J. Cole. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, he seems to get some of this like hate online, like when he puts out projects and whatnot, or it seems like people don't want to give him the credit that he deserves sometimes. Me personally, that being said, I do think the offseason sounds better than Pray for Haiti, not because Pray for Haiti sounds bad, but I think that just some of the songs just sound better made. That being said, Pray for Haiti sounds pretty good to me. I listened to it again this morning prior to us recording, and I like it a lot. You can hear that his lyricism's on point. You can hear that the production's on point. Shouts out to Conductor. You know what I mean? Like, it was really a well-produced album. I think there's a few, instrumentals that I'm not really the biggest fan of, but they're usually like the song just in general that I'm not the biggest fan of. But I think if anything else I can say about this project is that it's pretty solid, and it is like definitely an album that should be listened to.
Yeah. I definitely can agree to all of that. Like I do believe, like they were saying with the whole thing with like people being prisoners of the moment, where people are comparing. Don't get me wrong. This to me, I think this is probably my favorite album from this week's release. The releases from this week, right? But I do believe that if you have someone like when you start comparing these two albums together and saying like this artist is better than this artist X, Y, and Z, it kind of distorts like it. You're kind of distorting like just the value of what the music really is, right?
Exactly.
And to me, I think I think those conversations really should be had closer to the end of the year when there's been a summation of all the projects that have came out over the past 9 to 12 months. And that's when you can be like, hey, this is a good project. This is a bad project. This is better. This is better, whatever. Because I think more often than not, it has something to do with like the aging of a project. But with all that to be said, I will say this Mach-Hommy project is one of my favorites. There are some others that came out this week that we will get into that I listened to as well, but it trumped it as well, no pun intended. So I think this was for most people that have never heard of Mach-Hommy, I think this was a great introduction. Westside Gunn definitely showed his artistic ability in terms of curating without like being too overpowering, putting too much of his hand on it where the artist can't be free. Right. So, and then on top of it, like y'all said, like Conductor, to me, Conductor is probably one of my favorite producers, definitely from like within the past year because of like the work that he did with Westside Gunn. So seeing what he's done now with this project, I think this is a setup for something that could be really great for Mach-Hommy, especially in terms of what the future of his career could be looking like, especially with people even having the not nerve, but people having the willingness to say, yo, this is better than what people are arguing to be the best album of the year.
Man, I agree with you, Spence. I agree with you, Nigel. This is a solid project. I think the fans, the listeners, they should definitely tune into this project. It's good rap music. Um, like Spence said, great introduction to him to the people who don't know of his music. He does have other projects and stuff like that, but I think this is like the biggest breakout one for him. More on the producers, shouts out to Conductor Williams, because obviously he was like the highlight producer of this project. I want to also bring it back to Westside just a little bit. Shouts out to Westside for getting these lesser known or unknown producers and really giving them a platform to shine. And just goes to show that there's some really good producers outside of your Metro Boomins and your Tate Keiths. Now, no knock on Metro Boomin and Tate Keith because they're fire producers as well. But it just goes to show, hey, there's a space for unknown producers as well to shine on somebody with a name. You know, I feel like never stray away from, oh, I gotta have the Metros, I gotta have the Pierre Bournes. Like, no, you could get somebody who's not known who could still make fire production, kind of like Nigel. So I feel like that.
Facts.
Shouts out to Westside Gunn. Shouts out to Westside Gunn for doing that. And you know, Griselda, man, damn. Once again.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to piggyback off of that because I think what Westside is doing now is really bringing more light. Like you said, is bringing more light to those unknown producers while still being able to stay within his sound. Yeah. Because I think you had brought something up about this, how the sound that just the Griselda sound, I'll say overall, is very impactful in terms of like a certain genre of hip hop now, right?
Yeah.
And like that underground street music is kind of bouncing more towards the Griselda sound. You're starting to hear more rappers that are.
Sauce Walker was doing it.
Yeah, Sauce Walker.
Yes, and it sounded good.
Yeah.
And you know something, like now thinking about how Sauce Walker raps, I can see that working because it's a certain element that those type of beats create. And let's be honest, like, I mean, I think Conductor, I'm not going to say he's there yet, but he at the pace that he's going and the type of producers that Westside's picking, it's a strong bet that if these producers keep keep moving forward with this type of sound and kind of spreading this out to other rappers that can probably make a more better sound, polished sound for themselves in terms of projects. These type of producers would go into the categories of the Harry Frauds, the Alchemists, like, and that's not. And don't get me wrong, Alchemist is here; he's at the top,
right?
And then you have like the Harry the Fraud, who's been here for like the past 10 years. But when you're hearing a sound like this, it's different than them, but at the same time, it's all within that bubble. And I think this is a great beginning in terms of what the new sound of what hip hop will sound like going into this next decade, because I'm not gonna lie to you, it's just unmatched. I think this is like a sound that's unmatched. Definitely when you have producers that are coming up with like that boom bop sound without being too nostalgic.
Well, I think it's interesting, you know what I mean? Because you have like, you know, rappers like Benny the Butcher and 38 Spesh who are, you know, rapping on, you know, beats like that, and they're putting out projects as well. And I think that, you know, it's a topic that we keep on coming back into within our group chats as to what the mainstream sound of rap sounds like and what this underground sound of rap sounds like, because they're two totally separate lanes. But I mean, did anybody get to listen to the Benny the Butcher project that came out?
Yeah, I'll listen to
What's the name of?
Trust the Sopranos. So I'll listen to it, and here's my opinion of it. So I think it's not my favorite project from these two artists. They did a collaboration project before called Stabbed and Shot. I think people should listen to that. I think that one's a bit more dope. I know the song title's a little
it's a crazy title.
Yeah. But I mean the album title. But what I will say is like the production was dope on here, but Benny also wasn't on this project as much neither. He was probably on like 3 songs. I feel like this is probably like a little showcase for 38 Spesh to kind of like highlight his folks under his, because I didn't know, but he has his own little label with like Shade Noir and all that stuff is on there. So I'm not saying this project's whack or nothing like that, but I think they've had a better project prior to this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I listened to it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the project, to be honest, especially after listening to Praying for Haiti. Once I listened to Pray for Haiti, I kind of just pushed it to the side for the most part. But at the same time, it is no slight to the artistry and the rapping ability, because they still delivered. It just didn't hit the same. And similar to like you said, I think what Benny and 38 Spesh are trying to do they're trying to push their other artists, right?
Yeah.
And I think, to me personally, like you had Ricky Hyde on there, you had Shade Noir. To me, from listening to that project, the standout artist from that project was Shade Noir. I felt like she was probably the best artist on that project outside of Benny and some of the 38 Spesh as well. Excuse me. Benny's gonna be Benny at the end of the day. And we know he raps every song like he just started rapping. Like he raps like he's still trying to get out the street or something. So like outside of that, like Shade Noir, she definitely stood out. Actually, people, if you want to, she actually is on a song with it's actually a song with Shade Noir, Relay, and Sir Mikey Rocks and Giovanni that's out. So it's a dope song by James Major that you guys should check out. She has a great verse on there as well. But back to this project, we'll leave in the comments caption or whatever you want to call it. We'll leave the name of the song for you guys to check out as well with her on there. But yeah, Shade Noir, she definitely was a breakout. Not a breakout, but she definitely had the best performance on this project outside of Benny. So it was a cool project, but
Element's the name of the song.
Element, yeah. Guys, definitely check out Element because she definitely has a great verse on there, along with Sir Mikey Rocks and Relay and Giovanni as well. So,
hey man, shouts out to Cypher Click, man.
So before we move on, I had a question for y'all. Like, as to, you know, like let's just say 1 out of 5. Like, what would you give Mach-Hommy and the 38 Spesh projects?
1 out of 5. I would say, just off two or three listens of the Mach-Hommy project, as of right now today, I would say I would give it 4.5. Right, 4.5. I'll say 4.5. I don't want to bounce.
No, you got it 4 or 5. Those
Yeah.
are the options.
4.
All
I'll
right.
give it a 4 then. I'll give it a 4. And shit, I don't want to give.
You got to give it something.
Damn, I guess I got to give it a 3 then for the 38 Spesh and the 38 Spesh track, the 38 Spesh and Benny the Butcher joint. Just because it's, I don't know, I'm gonna just leave it at that. I'll give it a 3, and then I'll give the other project with Mach-Hommy a 4.
So I'm gonna give Mach-Hommy a 4 as well, since I think 0.5s are kind of unnecessary.
Right.
I'm gonna give it a solid 4. Is a damn good project. The Benny the Butcher, no, I'm gonna also give it a 3 out of 5, and here's why: the rapping saves this project. The rapping is pretty good. If the rapping was not good, this would be like barely a 2, like maybe a 1. But
Jeez, that's kind of hard.
I gotta listen to it.
No, no. That's why I'm giving it a 3, because everybody that was rapping on it, they were rapping.
Right.
So they were rapping. They were doing their thing on that. But just overall, I was just like, yeah, it's not.
The beat selection wasn't your favorite.
That plays into it as well. Yes.
Yeah, like one thing I can say is like when it comes to like beat selection, it does play a huge part. I will say that. And sometimes if the beat is not as great, but the rapping is great, it definitely helps save a project in most cases. So I definitely agree to that. And sometimes you'll have artists that reinvent the sound. They'll take an old sound and reinvent it, while other times they just come up with a new sound that may not be as palatable. But I can say actually YG, speaking of joint projects, actually, like with YG and Mozzie, they dropped a project called Community Service, where the first song is called Gangsta, and I
heard that.
Yeah, and
I like it.
They use the Wanksta beat.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's to me, I think that's probably one of my favorite projects from this week as well. They actually took a couple beats from like the 2000s and really made it work. I'll say that to say the least, they really made it work. It's definitely similar to like Lau was saying. It's like turn up music kind of going out. Granted, they do talk about like street stuff, X, Y, and Z, but YG to me is one of my favorite artists from the West Coast person. I think he's had a couple classic albums, but that's a whole nother discussion. But
I
it was a
know
solid